Something is happening deep within the Amazon. Between the low mist and the towering trees, there is a circle of life that breathes with the forest. From the outside, it looks like a massive, primitive structure, almost like a nest woven from branches and leaves. But inside, people live. People who, when danger approaches in the jungle, don't climb to higher ground or flee to the mountains. They gather in the center of the shabono, beneath the opening to the sky, as if unity were their first line of defense. Why would anyone choose to live this way, so far from everything we know? Welcome to CronoPlanet, where stories aren't told. They are uncovered. What you're about to see isn't ruins or legends. It's 6 living peoples who survive in the largest and most challenging rainforest on Earth, and who force us to ask whether we've mistaken progress for disconnection. Here, the forest speaks. Here, time isn't measured by clocks, and every sunrise smells of wet earth, slow-burning fire, and deep life. These communities, almost invisible to the rest of the world, have resisted invasions, diseases, and external pressure to remain who they are. Before we begin, subscribe to the channel and activate the bell to join this community. And stay until the end, because the last tribe in this journey lives in one of the most remote and mysterious regions of the Amazon. And their story is not easily revealed. Are you ready to discover them? 1. Yanomami, guardians of the shabono. This is the Amazon, a place where home doesn't rise among the clouds, but under a massive palm-thatched roof that embraces the entire community. The ground is wet clay. It yields, it breathes, it absorbs each step, as if the forest itself were listening. The air is dense, heavy with humidity, invisible insects, and the whisper of thousands of leaves that never stop moving. In the heart of the rainforest, where sunlight barely reaches the soil, the Yanomami build their world, a circular world, a collective refuge known as the shabono, large enough to shelter dozens of families under the same roof, organized by clans and kinship ties passed down through generations. Inside, the air changes. It smells of fresh wood, gentle smoke, and living earth. There are no solid walls. Life flows freely. Conversations move in circles. Children run. Dogs sleep near the fire. And the sky is visible through the central opening, a reminder that everything is connected. Nothing in the shabono is decorative, not for looks, not out of habit. Here, every gesture has a purpose, and every structure comes from a forest that gives, but also demands respect. Each community lives dispersed, separated by winding rivers, root-covered hills, and pathways only they can sense. They don't use written maps. Their geography is memory. Every river has a name, every rock a spirit, every sound a warning or a blessing. That knowledge is their compass, their story, and their shield. Building a new shabono isn't just labor, it is continuity. First, they choose a clearing. Then they raise thick wooden pillars and weave palm leaves layered like scales. The structure closes in a circle, leaving an empty center for fire, life, and ceremony. Here, home doesn't dominate nature. It lives with it. The roof breathes. It moves with the wind. It lets in just enough rain to cool the ground and lets smoke escape to repel insects and purify the air. When night falls, the forest fills with sound. Crickets, bats, night monkeys. The unknown moves between the trees. But inside the shabono, the fire is lit and families gather in the center, illuminated by red embers rising toward the opening in the sky. Unity is their first defense. The community is their frontier. For years, some visitors have labeled the Yanomami as backward or primitive. But that outside gaze ignores a fundamental truth. This is not backwardness. It is adaptation. The shabono is not poverty. It is strategy, culture, identity. From within, they hear the forest better. From within, they sense danger sooner. And from within, they watch the world change without asking their permission. For the Yanomami, the forest is not a resource. It is a person, a living being with whom one speaks and negotiates. They believe spirits inhabit the trees and the rivers, and that when the forest falls ill, the community does too. That's why they take only what is necessary. Just enough wood, the right palm leaves, the right amount of game to share. When outsiders arrive with cameras, boots, and hurry, the Yanomami watch in silence. They neither reject nor embrace outsiders. They understand that every outside gaze alters their balance, and documenting their lives is never neutral. What do you think? Are they vulnerable, or simply protecting a world that still remembers? More than an isolated people, the Yanomami are a living warning. They remind us that home doesn't need concrete, and progress doesn't always mean moving forward. Sometimes it means staying in balance. Their architecture breathes, moves, and ages with dignity. And their way of life tells us something the world has forgotten. When we stop listening to nature, we stop understanding ourselves. From the circular heart of the shabono, we now descend into another form of resistance. One expressed not through the home, but through the body. What comes next doesn't just change the landscape, it changes the way it's defended. 2. Kayapó, warriors of the living forest. The air grows more humid and the light turns golden. There, where the sun threads its way through the canopy like a strand of light between leaves, lives a people who defend their land as if it were an extension of their own body. The Kayapó, warriors of the living forest. In this vast landscape, the ground is not an obstacle, but an ally. The rain falls hard, yet every drop feeds a balance they have built over centuries. Here, villages are organized around a large circular plaza. Houses rise on solid ground, all facing a center where decisions are made, alliances are sealed, and every important ceremony begins. What may look like a simple life at first glance is, in reality, a highly structured society. Ancestral laws, alliances between clans, rituals that mark each stage of life, and commitments that hold the group together. Their prosperity is not measured in possessions or individual plots of land, but in something deeper, the strength of the collective. Community is wealth. Unity is protection, and the forest is their first teacher. At the center of each village, the plaza is the heart of everything. There, men talk, discuss defense strategies, prepare celebrations, or repair body ornaments made from fibers, seeds, and natural pigments. Their headdresses, with macaw feathers and birds of paradise, are not mere decorations. They are symbols of status, courage, and responsibility. Women, guardians of agricultural knowledge, cultivate manioc, corn, squash, and medicinal plants. Their hands know every seed and every season. They know when the soil is ready to receive and when it needs to rest. Kayapó territory functions like a living organism in balance, where every path, garden, and river has a role to play. There is no border drawn on a map. The forest itself is the frontier, and they know it better than anyone. But new times have arrived. In some villages, there are already schools, radios, and occasional contact with the outside world. Young people travel to study, speak Portuguese, return with modern clothes or phones. And yet, when they come back, they must once again adapt to the old rules. Listen to their elders, respect the chiefs, follow the rituals, and protect the land. Between tradition and change, a question runs through every Kayapó community. How can new tools be adopted without losing what gives their world meaning? And what happens when progress brings a speed this forest never asked for? In their most important ceremonies, their bodies are covered in geometric patterns of red urucum and black genipapo. It is not makeup. It is language. Each shape represents a clan, a lineage, a duty. It is a silent map explaining who you are and what place your family holds within the people. In the distance, the songs begin to rise. The dance that follows does not admit spectators. Everyone takes part. The steps move in circles, guided by maracas and the stamping of feet that seem to come from the earth itself. They remember that music was born here, in the contact between skin and forest, long before any modern instrument. In recent decades, alliances, threats, and challenges have multiplied. Some see them as warriors of the past, others as defenders of a forest the world needs in order to breathe. But they do not define themselves by outside opinions. They care for their territory with the patience of those who know that balance cannot be imposed. It must be protected and honored. And you? Do you think we can learn something from those who don't need to run to thrive? The fertile clay of this forest holds stories of struggle and of resilience. Now we leave the Kayapó Plaza behind and move into a wetter, denser, quieter realm, where the frontier is no longer the land, but our own breath. Matsés, the Jaguar people. From the fertile mud of the rainforest, we descend into a territory that is wetter and quieter. The landscape changes, and so does the sound. Each step sinks. Every movement makes the soaked ground tremble. The air smells of wet leaves, fresh resin, and a faint trace of smoke that disappears among the trees. We enter the land of the Matsés, known by many as the Jaguar people, guardians of one of the most remote regions between Peru and Brazil. Here, the ground is never still. It is not firm or stable. It is a weave of mud, roots, and water that breathes. Thin streams wind their way beneath the vegetation, feeding villages built on higher ground to escape the floods that reshape the world each season. In this maze of trees and humidity, the Matsés have lived for generations, adapting to a territory that demands absolute precision. Nothing is improvised. Nothing is accidental. Their way of relating to the forest is their first language. Trails are not marked with signs. They are memorized by sounds, by the angle of a fallen trunk, by the murmur of a nearby river. The Matsés listen to the forest as others would read a living map. Hunting is one of their greatest skills. And to hunt, the body transforms. They paint themselves with dark patterns that imitate the jaguar's face and use long blowguns made from palm and hardwood. With them, they fire darts coated in natural poisons, extracted from plants or from specific frogs such as Philomedusa bicolor, known in the West for the Kayapó ritual. But here, it is neither fashion nor exotic spectacle. It is ancestral knowledge. Each substance has a purpose, a dose, and a precise context passed down by the elders. At the center of the village rise communal houses with immense palm roofs. There, stories are shared, hunting is discussed, food is divided, and songs are taught that describe animals, seasons, and rivers. Tradition passes from voice to voice. And when words are no longer enough, someone reaches for a palm fiber, a seed, or a natural pigment to continue memory on the body. For decades, the Matsés were misunderstood by explorers and officials who described them as aggressive or unstable. But that view always ignored a crucial point. Their aggression was not their nature. It was their defense against invasions, diseases, and borders imposed from outside. Their knowledge of the forest is so vast that they created their own book, a medical compendium written with them, describing plants, uses, preparations, and diagnoses, all without a single external intervention. It is perhaps the most detailed indigenous ethnobotanical work in the Amazon. Yet this knowledge faces a deep dilemma. How can wisdom that depends on intact rainforest survive in a world where the forest shrinks every year? The elders say it often. If the forest dies, we die with it. During ritual festivals, men perform dances that imitate the movements of animals. The jaguar, the anaconda, the peccary. They are not costumes. They are lessons. Each gesture shows how an animal hunts, how it defends itself, how the spirit of the forest moves through its body. For the Matsés, the world is not divided between humans and nature. Everything belongs to the same living being. Poison heals. The body remembers. The spirit watches. As outside pressure advances along rivers and roads, the question becomes harder and harder to ignore. Can we learn without taking? Can we observe without disturbing what we are trying to understand? Our steps grow slower. The humidity tightens. And in this forest, where every shadow could be a jaguar, we move toward a region where spirituality itself becomes a form of resistance. Keep watching. Because what comes next takes us to a people who speak with the forest, not only through hunting, but through their whole worldview. For Ashaninka, guardians of the river and ayahuasca. From the sound of small streams, we move into a wider, almost sacred silence. The damp breath of the swamp fades, giving way to the deep calm of the upland forest. We follow narrow paths framed by medicinal trees, thick lianas and leaves that glisten in the filtered light. The ground seems to move beneath our feet, not because it gives way, but because it is alive. Every root, every insect, every shoot is part of the same pulse. The air is lighter, the wind carries messages from nearby rivers, and a soft mist hides the horizon. We are entering the lands of the Ashaninka, one of the most numerous and respected peoples of the Amazon, known for their intimate relationship with the spirits of the forest and their mastery of medicinal plants such as ayahuasca. Their villages rise close to the rivers, on higher ground that avoids floods and allows for carefully planned gardens where every plant has a purpose. Here, distance is not measured in kilometers, but in the effort it takes to paddle upstream or cross a ravine. A journey may last hours or days, and sometimes a single canoe makes the difference between moving forward or being trapped by the current. The forest sets the rhythm. When the fog descends, activity slows, and people gather to prepare medicines, fibers, or dyes. When it clears, everyone moves. Animals are hunted, gardens are checked, and plants are gathered that only appear after the rain. Ashaninka knowledge of the land is meticulous. They know which part of the soil must rest, which plant requires shade, and which one needs the exact moisture of dawn. They learn something from every tree and return a gesture to every tree. Their houses stand on low stilts, grouped around a communal space where a fire always burns. The smoke dries clothes, drives away insects, and purifies the air for rituals. Walls darkened by ash show the passing of years like a silent book. Communication here depends not on echo, but on water. The Ashaninka interpret the sound of the river to know if rain is coming, if the fish are changing areas, or if an animal is moving between the bank and the current. They believe that the spirits of the water teach, guide, and warn. When young people leave to study or work, they pass through a simple yet profound ceremony on their return. The community receives them with aromatic leaves, fire, and songs. It is their way of reminding them that clothes can change, but identity must not be erased. The Ashaninka follow an ancient rule. If you take something from the forest, learn how to care for it. That is why, after harvesting a plant, they leave an offering, a leaf, a thought, a word. For them, everything has a spirit, and everything deserves respect. We live in a world that accelerates without measure. They still measure time by the flow of water and the strength of their legs, by the light that filters through the trees, by the sound the earth makes when it breathes. If you are still here, it is because this story has touched you. If you haven't yet, subscribe and join this community to support this journey. Because from this point on, you are already part of this voyage with the last guardians of the Amazon. And stay alert. Every minute brings you closer to the final tribe, the most remote and enigmatic of this entire journey. And now I want you to reflect on something. What do you think matters more? The comfort of progress or the peace of roots? Sometimes, the question does not have a single answer. But when you look closely at life in these villages, you realize it is not about choosing between past or future, but between living disconnected or living with meaning. From the silence of the forest, we now enter a territory where color and cosmology become language, where masks represent entire worlds, and tradition is painted on the skin as living memory. So are de Boer, 5 with Ticuna, children of the celestial anaconda. The mist dissolves. For the first time on this journey, the horizon opens without trees to hide it. Clear light falls over an endless strip of green. The territories of the Ticuna, one of the largest, most symbolic and ancient peoples in the entire Amazon. Here, where the river is so wide it looks like a moving mirror. The Ticuna live in villages scattered between Brazil, Peru, and Colombia. Water is their road, their food, and their history. Families travel in canoes that move slowly, following the course of a river that never flows the same way twice. Their world is not organized around the fire, but around myth. And the founding myth of the Ticuna is one of the most powerful in the rainforest. The origin of their people in the celestial anaconda, a spirit that descended from the sky and shaped the first human beings. For them, every bend in the river, every current, every calm pool is part of that sacred body that remains alive beneath the surface. The villages rise on firm earth terraces, elevated to withstand the floods. There they talk, weave, paint, and decide. The long houses, made of wood and palm leaves, are places where life flows without interruption between generations. Cooperation is their oldest law. When one Ticuna builds a house, the entire clan helps. When the fishing season arrives, everyone organizes to guide the fish into collective nets or to throw darts from silent canoes. Here, the I never walks alone. The we is what guarantees survival. Ticuna ceremonies are a world of their own. In their most famous ritual, the Pelazon Festival, young women who reach maturity go through a symbolic process in which their bodies are painted with black geometric patterns made from jenipapo juice. Those lines are not decoration. They tell who they are, where they come from, and which path they will follow. Men also transform for the ceremonies. They wear masks that represent sacred animals: the tapir, the jaguar, the giant fish, the anaconda. When they dance, the spirit of the forest seems to move with them. The sound of drums and flutes blends with the murmur of the river, creating a soundscape that cannot be separated from the jungle. Although contact with the outside world has increased in recent decades, the Ticuna have learned to filter change. They use modern clothing, new tools, and even radio signals. But they keep their art, their language, and their rituals alive, aware that a culture disappears not when it stops fighting, but when it stops remembering. Some elders explain it with a simple phrase: a people without myth is a tree without roots. That idea sums up the way they walk through the world, between the tradition that sustains them and the pressures that arrive along the rivers. As the sun sets, the masks are hung up to dry. The paints are washed off in warm water, and the smoke from the cooking fires rises like an ancient prayer. From here, the Amazon looks like a world suspended between two times: the time of spirits and the time of a future that never slows down. The Ticuna have understood something many of us forget. Surviving is not about mastering the forest, but listening to it. And now, after 5 peoples, 5 perspectives, and 5 ways of understanding life, you are one step away from meeting the final tribe. The most isolated, the most protected, the most mysterious. The one we mentioned at the beginning, whose story does not reveal itself easily. Get ready. What comes next does not only change the direction of this documentary, it changes the way we understand isolation in the heart of the Amazon. 6. Kurubo, the people of deep silence. The light changes. The sound does too. The rainforest, which until now has followed us with constant songs and murmurs, becomes denser, heavier, harder to read. We are entering one of the most inaccessible regions on Earth. The Jaguar Valley, a natural frontier of tangled rivers, swamps, canopies that never let the light through, and territories where people still live who have chosen not to be seen. Among them, the Korubo are perhaps the most enigmatic. Unlike other Amazonian peoples, they do not build large open villages. They live in small, mobile groups, surrounded by a jungle so humid and closed that one wrong step can sink you into mud up to your waist. Their houses are temporary shelters made of palm leaves and simple frameworks, designed to be moved whenever the forest decides. Here, isolation is not a remnant of the past. It is a form of defense. The Korubo have suffered invasions, disease, and loss through forced contact in the past. That is why their strategy is clear. Avoid paths, avoid encounters, avoid anything that does not come from the forest. They speak a language of which only fragments are known. Their roots are understood only by them. Their tools, made from hardwood and plant fibers, are efficient in ways that do not require metal. The Korubo hunt with heavy clubs and short arrows. They fish in small streams and gather fruits that grow only where humidity is near 100%. Every decision is calculated. Every movement is survival. Many call them the tribe of silence. Not because they do not speak, but because their presence is almost impossible to hear in the forest. They move without leaving traces. They watch without being seen. They know every sound of the jungle, and they recognize immediately when one does not belong. For them, the outside world is a territory full of invisible threats. viruses, violence, imposed borders, roads that advance without asking. That is why they choose what many consider impossible in the 21st century. To remain a people who protect themselves from the world by staying inside the forest. Even so, the Kurubo are not a romantic mystery or an unknown attraction. They are a real community that defends itself because it must. Because their recent history has taught them that contact can destroy in days what took centuries to build. And you, who have come this far, are seeing something very few truly grasp. Isolation is not always weakness. Sometimes it is the most extreme form of resilience. The Korubo force us to ask an uncomfortable question. Who is really isolated? The people who live inside the forest, or the society that lives far from nature and has forgotten how to listen to it? Evening falls over the Javari. The sun filters through in fragments between enormous leaves. The air turns orange, and the forest breathes like a sleeping giant. Here, the journey through the 6 tribes comes to an end, but not its meaning. There is still something left to reveal. If you feel this journey shouldn't end here, let us know in the comments with the words, "Second part." Your voice helps keep these stories alive and invites us to look at the world with respect and curiosity. Did you know that the Amazon is one of the most linguistically diverse places on Earth? Many of its languages have fewer than 1,000 speakers and hold unique knowledge about plants, climate, navigation, and survival. When a language disappears, it is not just words that vanish. An entire way of understanding the world goes extinct. On this journey, we have seen homes that breathe with the forest, communities that find wealth in unity, and rituals that teach us to look with new eyes. And here is the revelation. The isolation of these tribes is not a remnant of the past. It is a reflection of the future we could lose. The forest still holds answers the modern world stopped listening to. The disconnection is not in them. It is in us. These cultures do not survive despite the forest, but because of it. And in their apparent distance, they preserve something we have forgotten. The bond with the land, memory, belonging. After meeting these 6 tribes, one truth becomes impossible to ignore. None of them are behind. Sometimes, what falls behind is our way of seeing. We forget to pause. We forget to listen to what the earth is still trying to tell us. And now I ask you, what do you think matters more? Moving forward without looking back, or protecting what sustains us? Share your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for joining us in this documentary. We hope what you learned today gives you a new perspective and enriches your understanding of history. If you want to keep exploring with us and haven't yet, subscribe and activate the bell so you don't miss future episodes. And remember, every journey begins with an attentive gaze. See you at the next destination.